Story begin with the scene. Water drops from ceiling into a dark cave, or even say it's a dungeon. There are injured and exhausted peoples. While holding one of the injured man, a man said, "Hold on a little more," while that injured man falls down. Some men murmuring that man fell again. The healers can't have much mana left. At this rate, won't he die? That injured man said, "It's okay," and with hopeful smile he said, "We have the Empire's hope. Warrior Burn is with us." Burn said, "He can hear you from here. It seemed like you're all right." Then all men shouted, "Yes, warrior." Burn thinks, the party members have started feeling restless. The subjugation party was made up of a total of 74 members at the start. There are only 43 behind me now. He grit his teeth and clench his fist, thinking about he didn't lose 31 but 43 survived. Even though everyone did their best, we were not able to protect 31. Comrades. Beside that, everyone was already prepared for this, since this place is one of the 7 great evil dungeons. Then we saw in a very dark cave, a very bright light looking like sun rising. Then one of the men said, "Sir Burn, please look over there." They stand in front of a big door. Warrior Burn thinks, finally we have arrived. This is the core of ancient dungeon, and then the door open. There are so many treasure beyond our imagination stored here, and it is also the place where the best product, the 36th masterpiece that created mankind, lies, and the place where the owner of this dungeon resides. Then sudden a vibration appears. Warrior Burn ordered them to get in line, shields and swordsmen to the front. Mages, brighten up this place. Then in the dark the vibration is stopped. The mages try to make it brighter and suggest that don't let your guard down. Then in the light they saw something very big is laying there, and he opened his 2 eyes. Warrior Burn prepare his sword to fight, but then in his eyes there are fear appears, and in front of his a very very big jaws with thousands of teeth appears. And then everyone screamed to run, "We can't win." After that, dungeon boss told all this to his skeleton friend. He said, "He was sleeping here when the human charged in." The skeleton said, "Is that what you mean?" The boss said, "He went against 2 opponents, the human and his fatigue. So Patrick, please calm down." Patrick was angry. He said, "Calm down? Do you think he can do that right now? He shout loud that you're a dungeon boss. Yet you were sleeping until the human came in? You were yawning in front of the humans. Does that make sense to you?" Then he screamed loudly. Then the skeleton called his another friend and said, "Renee, what do you think?" She replies, "I don't know." To overpower the human with just a yawn, and with happy and cheering face she said, once again shocked by Mr. Boss' dignity. Patrick was speechless after hearing her words. In exhaustion he sat down and thinks, "Yeah, let's just give up." Then in frustration he screams, "This dungeon is screwed." The boss said, "Don't be like that. If you think too much, your bones will rot." The 7 dungeons that the human tentatively decided were impossible to raid. This is one of the 7 great evil dungeon. Most of the dungeon raids, humans victorious in the end, because the relationship between the humans and the monsters are attack and defend, that create an unequal repetition of war, and end results in the dungeon weakening. However, during a time when countless dungeons raids and created, there existed exceptional, that dungeons occasionally emerged as humanity couldn't raid or win them. It was an obvious thing. They accurately known as the 7 malevolent dungeons. These 7 dungeons were temporarily placed on hold by humanity and called impossible to clear. Even among the notorious 7 malevolent dungeons, in the core of the ancient, the most diabolical of them all, there exist many monsters who defend the dungeon's guardians, who defend the 3 different paths. The red path to the left is defended by a homunculus, the blade maid named Renee. The central blue path is defended by a skeleton, the death knight named Patrick, and the final path to the right, which is infested with filth. No accurate information has been discovered about that path, an unknown number of tentacles which is unknown name. The being which rules this impenetrable fortress is an ancient monster which appears on the first page of the Empire's mythos, named Swallow, and then it's all written in a book which Boss Swallow ordered his maid. The maid said, "The information documented in a book and spreading this to humans, then the number of intruder has definitely increased." Boss Swallow said, It's a way to maintain the dungeon too. If we surround ourselves in mystery too much, humans won't even think about to not coming in. We need to give them enough information about the dungeon to encourage them to enter. They run in like moths to a flame, unaware half the information they know is false. Despite this, Boss Swallow never expected for them to come in droves like this, and in front of Boss there are large numbers of corpse laying, and after counting was 74 corpses total. The maid said, the most of the equipment carried by those humans was melted down by 116 black tentacles, so they are unusable. The ones that are still usable are all quite expensive. If it was Renee, she would have been able to take care of them without damaging the goods. After thinks for a moment, Boss Swallow mutters, sure, sure. Then his body starts dissolving into a dark smoke like black smoke globe in front of Renee. Then from the smoke a eye watching outside and a hand emerge from it. It was Boss Swallow as its human form. After patting Renee, he said, of course, you could have done better, Renee. She blushes and gives a small giggle, and behind Renee a blue pair of eyes watching them and said to them, excuse me, we are gathered here for a meeting, not to play around. With a serious tone he asks them, why they are so excited? Then he burst with laughter, claiming the mood there is so sweet that he might get a cavity, but he doubted it's just his teeth that would rot, louder saying with laughter that he bet it would rot the rest of his skull, too. Then he points out to Boss Swallow that he should polymorph properly, reminding him that he has 6 fingers, which Boss Swallow sees. Then Skeleton laughing again, reminding Boss Swallow that when he polymorphed last time he had more than 40 teeth, and when Boss smile he got chills all the way down his spine. Annoyed Renee tells Patrick, the sound of yours jaw clacking is way too loud. She clench her fist toward Patrick, then holding a few reports Renee says, she will get to the main point. The 3 guardians take their seats and Renee reports that the humans have finally started taking the right path. She explains that during the last raid, the 116 black tentacles, who defended the right path, received huge injuries. It's in critical condition. Yawning, Boss Swallow reassures them not to worry, noting the remarkable regeneration of the tentacles and suggesting that they have to find a temporary another guardian replacement. With bright face Patrick asks, boss, in that case could you look for 2 guardian while you are at it? He want to quit, too. But Boss Swallow reminds him that he is his slave for life. Patrick gives a despairing look while Boss Swallow said, the humans will start taking only the right path now. Patrick believes that they might already be creating another subjugation party as we speak. That very moment Renee mentions that the humans use communication spells for faster spread information. News about the right path opening must have spread everywhere. Boss Swallow suggests to create a counter strategy and recommends changing their assignments. As a first step, he instructs Renee to take the infected path to the right instead of her usual red path. Boss Swallow thinks the humans will swarm the right path to thinking it as an opening, so he instructs Renee to protect it. With proud face she accepted, happily said, she can defend against any number of human, boss. Then he turns to Patrick, order him to protect the red path after Renee leaves. It causing Patrick to ask, why him? Boss Swallow explains that once humans realize Renee is on the infected path, they'll redirect to the red path, so Patrick should defend that red path. Boss expresses confidence that if they do this, they can defend against 2 attacks. Patrick asks Boss Swallow what they will do if the humans decide to take the central blue path. Following a moment of silence, in a stopper Boss Swallow says, so they'll just get a direct date with him. Patrick thinks, what kind of shitty plan is this, but Renee, admiring with bright eyes, approves and said, it's perfect, boss, while in background Patrick vomiting her expression. After that Renee said that the urgent matter is taken care of. Then Renee asks, now, what to do with that sword? Unaware of the sword, Boss Swallow asks, what sword? Patrick said, she's referring to the sword that the leader of the subjugation party used. He said that the leader was using the sword very well and expresses surprise at seeing humans that strong. Boss Swallow once again asks, what sword? Patrick turns sideways and sees it. Grabbing it, he says, that the sword, one of the 36 virtuous masterpieces, and they are quite famous weapon among the humans. He thinks this was the 14th? Named Tonabella. Boss Swallow remembers now. He had heard of them before and he thinks we have a few more like them in the storage. Boss says, the blade that Renee is using is also one of the 36 masterpieces. Patrick asked, what should we do with the sword? He offers it to Boss Swallow, but Boss Swallow suggested Patrick use it himself. Patrick is taken aback, and asked what? Really? At being offered the weapon, he begins to laugh, blushing cheek, and said, he will gladly accept the weapon since it's Boo's order. And thus this is the core of the ancient dungeon, a place with a fearsome homunculus made and a death knight who exudes the aura of death, as well as the place where a giant ancient monster resides. Boss Swallow, nearly falling asleep, murmurs that Patrick should take back his resignation letter, since he has now been given a weapon. Renee is a devoted sunflower who looks only at Boss Swallow, while Patrick, the only one person with a conscience in this dungeon and an expert at grilling his boss, while Boss Swallow is an ancient monster who is laziness incarnate. Then Renee asked Boss Swallow what to do with the remaining profits. Boss Swallow suggests they do as usual and use the extra as bait for the next intruders. Delighted, Renee said, she will take care of the distribution. She mentions that there aren't any monsters who need magic items and asks if she should sell the mana stones. Boss Swallow considers for a moment and asks if he should go to the human village to sell the items. Hearing this, both Renee and Patrick are bewildered, to be shocked. Boss Swallow asked why they are surprised. Patrick points to Renee and suggests it will be better for her to go instead. Annoyed, Boss Swallow asked what the problem is with him going. Then Patrick mentions he is clumsy at transforming into a human. Boss Swallow remains silent. He says it's fine and tells Renee to bring back lots of tasty things. The next moment Renee gets ready and, exclaiming the weather is good, sets off to the village. Before leaving, she bids goodbye to Boss Swallow. She enters a shop and offers the mana stones to the merchant, who scans them and says he can't buy them. Renee, looking cross, asks why not. The merchant, searching a while and grabbing a stone, says it's a B-rank mana stone, to buy which a commoner would need to save for 10 years. He mentions that the other stones require the skill of an Imperial Palace magician or a high-ranking magician to use. He considers that a jeweler in the capital or a magic tower wing might be able to handle the stones. Renee claims the capital is too far, which leaves the magic tower, though she doesn't want to go there. She will do it for Boss Swallow. And she grabs the bag of mana stones and heads out. The merchant notices a mana stone is still left on the table and he shouts at Renee about it. Renee turns her head and tells the merchant to keep it as a tip for the information he gave. Picking the stone, the merchant mutters, what a strange brat. Renee arrives at the magic tower wing. A mage tells her to consult with the guild master if she wants to sell mana stones. He offers to guide Renee to the office. As she follows the mage, she notices the magic tower is similar to dungeons. A while later, Renee reaches the office where the mage introduces her to the tower's leader, Graumitz Emmer. She asks for Renee's name and Renee introduces herself. While acknowledging Graumitz's impressive mana, Graumitz claimed she was going to ignore Renee, but knowing she has a bunch of mana stones, she hopes Renee brought high-ranking mana stones suitable to the status of the magic tower. Renee telling Graumitz to see for herself and empties the mana stones bag on the table, at which Graumitz becomes shocked. She picks them up, still baffled, and notices their high quality. Thinking a kid like Renee shouldn't have them, wondering who Renee is, Graumitz asks her where she found the stones. Looking at Renee's hair, she finds it kind of familiar. She mentions a family with silver hair among the Empire's 8 great houses and wonders if Renee belongs to that family and ran away with the stones. Her suspicion grows as she can't think of any other way Renee could have got those mana stones, and concludes Renee is a noble lady. So she apologizes to Renee for her rudeness and offers to purchase all the stones, offering 50 ounces of gold for each. Hearing 50 ounces of gold, Renee remembers the merchant had told her a commoner would need to save for 10 years to buy her mana stones. She knows that a commoner makes about 10 ounces of gold per year, so for 10 years it should be 100. Looking angry, Renee warns Graumitz that if she is lying she will dead. Graumitz apologizes. Realizing Renee knows more than she thought, she mentions that even with all their combined gold they can't buy all the stones, to which Renee suggests they buy only what they can afford. Graumitz gulps. After a while she brings out 2,000 ounces of gold, saying, "It's all they have." She offers to give the gold as well as other items of value in exchange for all the mana stones Renee has. Renee says, the items have to be of good quality and easily sellable, to which Graumitz reassures her. Pointing ahead, Graumitz tells Renz to follow her. Walking up the stairs, Graumitz mentions that the place is usually forbidden to outsiders but decides to make an exception for Renee, and she takes Renee to the tower storage. Inside, Graumitz shows Renee around, pointing out equipment, like a tiara made of 4-carat diamonds and a living black pearl, a marvel of alchemy. Renee's attention is grabbed by the word alchemy. She begins staring at the pearl with an angry look. Seeing this, Graumitz quickly covers the pearl, acknowledging that the art of alchemy disgusts many. She then points to a heart-shaped stone, explaining it's called the Crimson Love Stone, with rumors that it makes one's love a reality. Hearing this, Renee's eyes begin sparkling. Graumitz claims that infusing mana into the jewel in front of someone they like will cause the spirit in the jewel to bring about eternal love between them. Taking interest in the love stone, Renee asks if it works on anyone, to which Graumitz swears it does. Graumitz asks Renee if she is interested in the stone, and Renee affirms. Graumitz giggles and says that the love stone can even steal the heart of an emperor, deeming it priceless. Renee looks disappointed but wanting the love stone. She makes a huge offer. Graumitz's face turns into horror seeing what Renee is offering. Renee has taken out her blade, one of the 36 masterpieces, which she offers along with the mana stones for the love stone. A mage in glasses is shocked to learn Guildmaster really gave away the stone, as she asks about it. He reminds Graumitz that the love stone is really dangerous and warns it might bring death to Renee, but Graumitz doesn't seem to care as she claims Renee herself traded it. With an evil look, she assures the mage to not worry. She reveals that Renee will instantly die as soon as she releases the curse from a love stone along with the person she likes, and there won't be a trace of any evidence. Meanwhile, Renee with a pleased look is on her way, unaware of the dangers of the stone. She carries it. One of the 7 malevolent dungeons, Chait Castle. A woman holding a comb and scissors says someone's ends are dying and trims off some hair of that person. Renee, having her hair done by the woman, apologizes for coming without notice, to which the woman says it's okay with a smile. She says she loves seeing Renee. She is the boss of the Chait Castle. Her name is Ursabet Bathory. In a pampering tone, Bathory says Renee looks pretty no matter what. She also jokingly says she is jealous of homunculi, that Renee's face will never age. Renee compliments Bathory back, saying she also looks very young with paler skin. Bathory asks Renee if she knows how many beauty products and how much blood she has to use in a day to look good. Nervously, Renee asks Bathory how she looks right now. Bathory tells Renee she is the most beautiful girl. Teasing Renee's cheeks, Bathory assures her no one will reject her pretty looks, causing Renee to blush. Bathory then asks Renee for who are she getting herself dolled up so suddenly, and asks her if she will go and confess her love to someone. Holding the love stone, Renee grins and admits she is really going to confess. Hearing this, Bathory is speechless. Her face turns to shock as she yells out, asking Renee who she will confess to. Noting she was just joking before, Renee glowfully admits she will confess to Boss Swallow. Once again, Bathory is speechless. Sweating with uncertainty, she tells Renee to not joke. Renee assures she is not joking and claims she will really confess to Boss Swallow. Looking disappointed, Bathory asks Renee what she likes about Boss Swallow. Renee replies that she likes a lot of things about Boss Swallow, including his strength. Bathory says just being strong is not enough and reminds Renee that Boss Swallow is really strongest, but that all gets negated by his laziness. Renee says she knows Boss Swallow is lazy and always eats and just sleeps, and also he snores and he's tactless and also fatter recently. Bathory is unable to believe that despite these qualities Renee still likes Boss Swallow. Renee repeats she really likes Boss Swallow. Finally giving up on consoling Renee, Bethany hopes it works out and winks, telling her to return if she gets rejected. Blushing deeply, Renee thanks Bethany and shows confidence her confession will succeed. Still holding on to the love stone, Imperial capital is in the Dungeon Subjugation Coalition. A man informs that the subjugation party of the hero Burn has been annihilated. The man who said this is standing, and around him are many people all seated. Another man slams the table and stand up says, "That's all nonsense." Noting that it was said Burn's party easily defeated, another man speaks up saying, "Their bodies haven't been discovered," asking the first man how he can be sure. Yet another man shouts out that Sir Burn would never fall to any monsters. The man standing insists Burn's party would complete the mission in a day, and since 2 days have passed without contact, he believes Burn has likely been killed. The man sitting at the far end, likely the head, asks, "If that's the case, then what happened to Burn's sword, one of the 36 virtuous masterpieces?" The man standing says, "Communication was cut off when Burn's party reached the core of the ancient's heart," and suggests they won't be able to retrieve that sword. The head acknowledges this information. One of them suggests they hurry and go to get the sword, but another says, "It will be impossible since even Burn's party failed." There another man says, "They can't give up so easily," and believes Burn must have gravely injured the boss monster, which is agreed by one. Other one puts forward a suggestion to gather all their forces and go all in into the dungeon and put an end to it. Meanwhile the head is in a dilemma, as he knows if the second team fails it will be really bad, but he is also certain, if they sit still the Imperial family will be after them. On top he is worried, what if Burn never managed to injure the ancient boss monster and their new team all fail miserably? He speaks out that it will be impossible for them to conquer the dungeon core of the ancient. This statement puts an end to other members' conversations at that moment. Another person walks in saying he is curious. He walks forward saying he believes the dungeon can be easily conquered. The head sees the newcomer and exclaims, "It's the Imperial Magic Research Association," asking why he is there. The man from the Imperial Magic Research Association, the third eye followed by others, laughs and asks the head if he knows whose orders the association follows. The head curses, realizing the Imperial family is already interfering. The third eye takes a seat and says that since his association is there, the people in that room will pay for their sins. He scowls in anger and accuses them of not only getting an honored hero killed but also losing the Imperial Majesty's precious virtuous masterpieces. All the members sweat in fear at this accusation. Then he claims that if he kills everyone, there no one will be left to coordinate the countless subjugation teams of the Empire. He then informs that the Majesty has made a proposal which will ensure every member they will live. He says that they will have to raid the core of the ancient once more. The head says that it's impossible since even Sir Burn was unable to win. The third eye grins and announces they will use Nifrim. Hearing this the members are all shocked. Even the head, bewildered, says that Nifrim was a hybrid with many issues. The third eye claims Nifrim isn't a failed product but is unquestionably successful. He slams a hand on the table saying he has a question. He asks the head why Burn and his team did not survive the trip to the core of the ancient. He notes that Burn's team wasn't weak nor reckless. Questioning why, he himself explains that there is something Burn and his team lacked. Raising his pinky finger up, the third eye claims they lack just one thing. He says that thing is held by Nifrim, and he tells the head to make sure the raid is successful the second time. Meanwhile, back in the dungeon, boss Swallow gives a loud sneeze. He is getting a kind of ominous feeling, as if a big storm is coming. He transforms back into his monstrous form and sneezes loudly, blowing stones off the ground, and wonders if he has the flu. Boss Swallow groans on the floor, reluctant to patrol further due to fear of imminent human intrusion and Patrick's potential scolding. Even though Patrick is just a skeleton, but Boss Swallow is terrified of him. Muttering lazily, he pushes himself off the ground, claiming he doesn't want to be bothered anymore. As he heard humans enter the dungeon through the sewers, he decides to head there. On his way, he encounters the core of the ancient guardian, the 16 tentacles laying injured. However, he knows he can't help at the moment, so he decides to wait, and he moves forward a bit further ahead. He finds the 5th room administrator Anthropophago, which is also beaten up. He keeps moving ahead, thinking Anthropophago can regenerate themselves if their core body is still intact. A little ahead he sees the core of the Anthropophago is still alive and is confident they will recover on their own. He turns around and leaps off the plant. Landing down, he claims the problem now lies in rooms 1 through 4, where a slaughter has taken place. He wants to talk about the situation with Patrick but is afraid of being scolded. and he decides to go and rest and think about the problem later. He notes that he has looked around the sewer pathway in room 5 but didn't find much disturbance, and he turns around hoping Patrick will understand for not inspecting further. He is hopeful he is done with his patrol, when suddenly a massive sword pierces the wall of the dungeon. He stops in his tracks and recognizes humans have infiltrated once again. Looking pissed, he stares ahead at someone and decides to not let that person return back alive, but to his surprise the infiltrator isn't a human but Renee herself, who apologizes, and also thinking Boss Swallow was another human. Boss Swallow is surprised to see Renee as she apologizes again. Swallow says it's fine when upon closer look he realizes Renee has dressed up. Renee gives a wide smile, learning Boss Swallow noticed the change as she asks how she looks. Boss Swallow, awkwardly and stammering, asks if she dressed for any purpose, while believing she might put in her resignation letter. Renee nervously plays with her hair and affirms it's a special occasion, and he shocks by asking him to spare some time for her. Boss Swallow is still worried Renee will hand over a resignation letter. A while later, Renee takes Swallow to a large chamber where tables are set in the middle. She tells Boss Swallow to take a seat while she goes to bring tea. Boss Swallow meanwhile is praying she won't resign. Renee pours some tea for Boss Swallow and says that place was a secret location only they two know. Now blushing, Renee tries to speak her mind, while Boss Swallow begins to sweat with worry she will definitely resign. Renee asks Boss Swallow if he knows it's been 80 years since he took her in. Boss Swallow claims he knows 80 years ago over 1,000 dungeons met their downfall and thousands upon thousands of humans entered the core of the ancient. It was then when Renee earned her alias and started growing in status. Boss Swallow points out that Renee has been through a lot and asks if her right eye is feeling better now. While relieved she didn't resign, meanwhile Renee is really happy that Boss Swallow remembered her eyes. Boss Swallow says he will always remember, and Renee says she was so happy she could protect him all this time. Hearing this, Swallow's face shows clear worry as he asks what Renee means by saying she was happy. Believing she is saying goodbye, Renee proceeds to speak further while shaking from worry. Swallow hopes against hope. She won't resign. Renee finally speaks her heart out and tells Swallow she likes him. Startling him, she repeats that she likes him and says she has been waiting for this moment for 80 years. Boss Swallow struggles to take in what Renee just said. He thanks her for saying she likes him and he rejects her, explaining that they are always on the cusp of life and death and never know when they will die. Clutching her cloth, Renee says she expected it and knew she was pushing it on. She claims it was too heavy for her heart to carry the confession forever, but she says the thought of getting rejected is terrifying as she takes out the love stone. She expresses that she wants to be loved by Boss Swallow no matter what it takes, and she begins infusing mana into the stone, ready to stoop so low while Swallow tells her to calm down. She extends the love stone towards Swallow, believing now he will love her. However, Swallow senses something foul as dark energy surrounds him, asking Renee if she is trying to kill him. Taking aback, Renee lets go off the stone, which begins to shatter into pieces. Looking down, she notices a dark figure-like thing emerging from the broken pieces of the stone. Patrick, looking down, exclaims that Boss Swallow is the best. He points out that Swallow didn't just drive the humans away but also chased Renee too. Claiming he is so astonished by Swallow's wrath, Patrick finds it difficult to even get his jaws to click shut. Meanwhile, Boss Swallow, laying down, asks how he should handle it, and Patrick tells him to figure out the solution himself since he caused the problem. Holding the broken piece of the love stone, Patrick crushes it and acknowledges that it's not entirely Boss Swallow's fault. Turning to Swallow, Patrick asks why his ears are shut. Boss Swallow says that he doesn't remember anything, to which Patrick offers to help him remember, and he explains that when he arrived earlier, he saw Boss Swallow enraged with fury and Renee kneeling before him. Patrick shouted at Swallow to calm down. Boss Swallow's face was all disoriented and his expression was blank, and Renee was speechless. Patrick was confused at first seeing the incident. Renee, who was on her knees, was crying, realizing she made a mistake. Patrick had shouted at Renee to come back to her senses and told her to get out of there, and he had tried to move towards her but couldn't. In his current state, also worried she would get in his way, and he withdrew his sword and slammed in front of her, sending her flying backward with force. Renee was taken by surprise as she landed a few feet away while Patrick apologetically thought that was the only way to ensure her safety. He then turned towards Boss Swallow wondering what to do next. Boss Swallow, seeing Patrick, had asked him if he wanted to kill him as well. With this, Patrick finished relaying the flashback at present. Patrick asks Swallow if he really doesn't remember that at all, and Boss Swallow apologizes for the event. Patrick says that's good, as Boss Swallow admitted the mistake quickly and asks him why he reacted that way back then. Boss Swallow said it had to, that of all things. Then he asks if he should go and find Renee. Patrick says he should, pointing out that Renee is important for their dungeon. She would do every kind of work, like managing monsters' diets, cleaning, restoring the dungeon, and many more such tasks. Boss Swallow agrees that losing her would be really devastating for the dungeon. Patrick suggests Boss Swallow find her before it's too late, even if he needs to beg her to stay or kiss her shoes to bring her back. Since Boss Swallow is going to look for Renee, Patrick hands him ManHwa, a bracelet that helps stabilize one's mana. Patrick tells Swallow to not think about more details and claims the bracelet is expensive. He hopes the bracelet will stabilize Swallow's mana flux and prevent his body from pulsing badly in his polymorph state. Boss Swallow asks Patrick where he got the bracelet from, and Patrick says he picked it off the floor, and he requests Swallow to not do anything strange with the bracelet as it's fragile. Boss Swallow puts it on and saying he will see about it, and he turns around walking away and instructing Patrick to take care of the place. Patrick reminds Swallow to return in 5 days, claiming the humans will be back. Boss Swallow asks if Patrick wants him back before the subjugation party arrives, which Patrick affirms. Patrick is worried that he might not be able to fend off the intruders in Boss Swallow's absence, and he again reminds Swallow that 5 days is all he has to return. While walking away, Swallow says he will return with Renee within 5 days. Patrick shouts out, telling Swallow to not try to stand out too much if he gets close to a village. Boss Swallow says all right, and turning his head grins and jokingly says he will wreak havoc if things go south. Patrick eyes and notes that things are getting more complicated than expected. He knows that Renee gave up the beheading Fong and brought a mana stone containing a demon which nearly got her killed. Patrick is worried if Swallow finds out about this, he will cause mayhem and an apocalypse will occur. As he reads through the newspaper, he notices something causing his mouth to widen with shock. On a particular page, a headline says that the raiding of the core of the ancient dungeon will take place in 3 days. Patrick had told Boss Swallow to return in 5 days, and now realizing the raid will be in 3 days, he is thunderstruck. He curses in rage. Meanwhile, outside, somewhere far away, Boss Swallow is laying down on his back somewhere far away under a clear sky. Lord Swallow is laying on his back sounding annoyed. It's already been the 2nd time that he's teleported to a random place. He recalls Patrick had warned him not to use any magic, pointing out his body isn't a mess. He wonders if it's because his magic is faulty, but nevertheless decides to use it one last time. He sets the coordinates to the place where Renee had sold the mana stones, and so he instantly teleports, hoping it's the town of Harston. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a demoness on her throne addresses the humans who found her, she offering them a glorious death.